Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a massive, fundamental glitch in our modern internet, and we're going to trace its hidden code all the way down to bare metal silicon.
All right, let's just dive right in. So in early 2024, Google signed this absolutely staggering $60 million a year deal to continuously ingest Reddit's data. And as our sources point out, immediately after this deal went through, Reddit's search visibility just exploded. We're talking a 1,300% jump. Basically, a massive flood of traffic was redirected to a single site for one simple reason. It agreed to feed the corporate AI machine. But, this brilliantly illustrates a fatal paradox. As one of the sources puts it, Google is a snake eating its own tail. See, these massive AI models absolutely have to consume vast amounts of human knowledge to function. But by locking down these exclusive, massive buyouts to feed their models, they're effectively starving and ultimately killing off the independent, open web sources that generated that very knowledge in the first place. The small creators just get boxed out. And in the end, that leaves the machines with less and less original human input to actually draw from.
Which brings us to our first core concept, the royalist cloud enclosure.
The sources impartially frame this modern AI push as a major infrastructural power grab. They call it a revival of agent kingship. Essentially, centralized authority is being perfectly recreated via cloud computing, transforming what used to be open networks into metered, closed utilities. They refer to this as an interface inversion. Think of it kind of like a restaurant where you can no longer just order off the menu. Instead, the centralized machine intercepts what you want, meters out the intelligence, and dictates exactly what you're allowed to eat. We really used to view the early internet as this egalitarian paradise, right? A space where literally anyone could build and anyone could connect. But the sources argue we've completely devolved into a state of digital tenancy. Because the original web didn't really have a native way to remember state or property, centralized corporate landlords just stepped in and built the pipes. So we went from being free explorers to mere digital tenants. We're basically locked in a cage, being fed nuts by a corporate landlord and forced to rent access to our very own data.
Moving on to part 2, the 1689 digital breach.
To truly grasp why a headline-grabbing $60 million deal validates our total loss of sovereignty, we have to zoom out. We need to look at the sociology of computation through a massive historical lens. Researchers argue that this is a deeply cyclical battle over who controls infrastructural power. We've seen local actors successfully push back against absolute centralization before, like the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia, the 1689 Orange Pledge, and the physical assertion of the 1775 Midnight Ride. But the pattern always repeats. Today, the sources warn that we are hurtling toward a 2026 great enclosure of cloud AI, where centralized powers are once again attempting to enclose resources and strip away local autonomy. So, how do we establish truth to fight back? Well, the sources point to a beautifully complex, almost poetic philosophical concept called haksiri. It defines the absolute unique thisness of an event, the undeniable physical reality of a sovereign action. Think about Paul Revere's specific ride. That wasn't some abstract theory. It required a specific man on a specific horse at exactly 10 p.m. That is an undeniable physical record, which is the exact opposite of a probabilistic AI just randomly guessing out in the ether of cloud computing. You simply cannot separate your human intent, the record, from the physical execution, the substrate. If you want to actually change reality, those two things absolutely must be intrinsically linked. If a massive cloud empire hides the physical hardware from you and puts it entirely behind an opaque API, well, your true sovereignty is completely severed. Okay, so how do we escape this automated miasma? That brings us to Section 3, the sovereign compute escape. The symmetric resolution to a centralized agentic king is what researchers are calling artificial life. This pits royalist compute against republican compute. See, royalist compute relies on the FPU gambler, floating point units that literally just guess math approximations incredibly fast. It's like a casino prioritizing raw speed over total accuracy. Republican compute, on the other hand, completely rejects that hardware approximation. Instead, it relies on the ALU surveyor, the arithmetic logic unit. This deals only in strict, globally accountable deterministic truth on local hardware. And this triggers a really fascinating tactical shift. Developers are actively escaping the bloated cloud by using what they call chopsticks engineering. Instead of relying on these massive, heavy centralized APIs, they're using elegant surgical maneuvers. For execution, they use leaf node logistics to operate right out at the network's edge. And for payments, they bypass heavy Ricardian smart contracts entirely. They rely instead on native HTTP 402 webhooks to demand a simple, immediate cryptographic receipt for execution. It's brilliant.
Down at the logic level, developers are utilizing precise structural tools like the ERC 7827 JSON smart contract standard. By doing this, they're establishing a completely undeniable version-controlled mathematical record of their own sweat and labor. This specific standard ensures that your historical data isn't just quietly overwritten by some corporate server, it's maintained securely on-chain, returning true mathematical ownership directly back to the creator.
Which leads us to our final operational shift, becoming the sovereign pilot.
Securing this architectural layer radically upgrades your role. You go from being a captive squirrel generating data for a $60 million pipeline to the active orchestrator of your own digital survival. By wielding an agentic typewriter like a secure command line interface, you can lock in your sovereignty right now with 3 strict steps. Step 1, secure your physical substrate, own the local hardware. Step 2, publish your unalterable intent in a bit-perfect format. And step 3, execute locally. You deliberately, definitively anchor your abstract intent to your very own hardware reality.
As the Great Enclosure attempts to completely wall off your digital reality, the ultimate question remains. Are you going to passively accept this automated miasma and merely rent your thoughts from an invisible tech monarch? Or will you claim your rightful role, saddle up your own hardware substrate, and ride as a sovereign pilot? The choice of how you engage with the underlying architecture of your digital life is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.